Hey, this is Meredith's husband. I've got some SEO advice for you, but I'm going to keep it really simple so that you can understand it, so it makes sense, and most importantly, so you can actually use it. So last week,
yes,
I can't believe this was last week. It seems like forever ago. We did a podcast and I kind of ripped apart somebody's blog checklist
yes,
of all the things you shouldn't do. And then I realized after we did that, I'm like, yeah, I should probably have something that explains what you should do if I'm just saying.
Yeah, exactly. And shit on everybody else without offering any alternatives.
Yes. So I put together my own blog checklist, SEO checklist for blogs. Yes. It's actually something that I had done for a client.
Oh.
Except that client they were on something called Laravel. It was very specific to that client, is what I'm trying to say. And it was also about 40 pages long.
Okay.
But within that 40 pages is a one-page checklist that they can refer to. So I dug that up. I've taken out mention of that client, so you don't know who the client is. I've shortened it a little bit. I put the checklist up front. So really, you can just use the first, I would say, 2 pages.
How many pages is it?
It's 34, but the first page, it's a 34-page checklist. No, the checklist is page 1. You can print out the checklist. It's page 1. Uh-huh. Page 2 is an example. And I think I'm going to get to what page 2 is. But you can print this out if you want on a page, and you can use just the first page, or like I do, or I did, I print 2 sides. So I just have one. Oh, there you go.
Page. So it's just a tight 16 pages.
Yeah. So it's just the checklist on one side and then an example of what these things are on the second side. The rest of it is like if you want to drill down into, wait a minute, why are subheadings important and how should I think about them and how long should the text be and how should I link and how should I choose my – so there's a lot of drill down information which you don't need.
So you have
unless you want.
The cliff notes after the top 10 and then you have a deep dive. I'm modernizing this for the kids out there. Then we have a deep dive. Yeah. Should you wish to accept it, that's 30 pages.
Yes.
Okay.
And you don't need nobody's going to read it from start to finish. But if you're going through the checklist, you're like, wait a minute, I need some more information about image tags.
Yeah. What exactly is that?
Yeah. Okay. So there are, actually, I don't know how many points there are. There are.
Glad you did your research.
I'm counting.
That's great. We can just sit here and wait while you count.
Okay. There's 14.
Can you just go to the bottom and isn't there a number? Aren't they numerated?
No, I did not number them.
Oh, okay.
Oh, maybe I'll number them too. That's a good idea.
Yeah, could be, because then someone could say, hey, I have a question with number 8.
Yep. Good.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes. So I'm going to go through these. I'm going to try to make it pretty quick.
That'd be great.
Number 1, the slug, the URL. When you create a blog, you usually have an opportunity to change what we call the slug.
I wish it wasn't called a slug. Slugs are so sweet, and that's such a crap name for them. And it's also just a slug. Sounds like you're just like slug.
Weren't you just telling me how we should keep it short?
Yes. Okay. But I'm advocating for the slugs.
I know. I'm just giving you a hard time. Number 1 is the slug. What common advice is, and what the advice in this last thing, the last checklist we reviewed, is put your keywords in your slug. And that doesn't really help SEO.
Right.
It's now for use. It used to help SEO years ago. And now like the situation I was telling you about just earlier this week, what people do is they go back to their old blogs and they change the URL and they put their keywords in. And in doing that, you completely wipe out any SEO value that blog had built up and you go back to 0.
With the previous slug.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You do.
My point, the thing to remember is don't change your slugs after they've been live. You don't want to change them.
No.
And keep them, there's a couple rules, keep them short, take out stop words. There's no reason to have like an, of, the, it's going to be very short. We'll probably include some portion of your keyword, of your key phrase.
Okay.
I'll give you, once I go through this list, I'll give you an example.
I was going to say.
Of what, if this right now were a blog, which it probably will be, how I will assign each of these. The slug.
Okay, that's great. That would be very helpful.
So And that's page 2.
Because listeners want to get their money's worth, you know.
Okay, the title tag.
Yes.
So most important for the title tag is put your main keyword right in the beginning.
Okay,
just right up front. It should be less than 160 characters because if it's longer than that, it's going to get cut off. Did I say the title tag was 160 character limit?
You may have.
That's wrong. That's a 60 character limit.
The title tag.
The title tag. And again, with the title tag, take out stop words, an, of, the, because you only have 160 characters. You don't want to waste them on things that are not absolutely necessary.
Yeah.
So get your message across.
Waste not, want not.
As quickly as you can. Put your keyword right in the front so that when people do a search for and they see that keyword right in front, they're going to know immediately that that's a match.
Right. Like Thomas the Train, his face is on the front, not the caboose.
That's actually true. Yes.
No kidding.
Okay.
Number 2.
That was number 2. Title tags is number 2.
Title tags. Slug was first. Title tags.
Yeah.
Number 2.
The headings. These are what we call the H1s. Sometimes you'll hear H1s. I think a lot of people, what the person did with the checklist last week is they were calling the H1, the heading, a title.
Right.
Those are different. They're usually going to be similar. I mean, but I would avoid, they don't need to be, and they probably shouldn't be exactly the same. The heading is going to be the text at the top. It should be probably a little more user-friendly, a little more conversational. It should also have your keyword in it. Doesn't necessarily need to be the first exact words. Often headings are going to say something like how to do XYZ. You can, but you don't need to put that in your title tag. Your title tag, again, is just going to focus, bang, the keyword.
Right. And your title tag is not the title.
This is where there's confusion. There's the title tag.
Yeah.
That is the title tag. It's what you see in Google, that blue line. It's also, if you have a browser open, there's going to be in whatever tab you're looking at, there's going to be a little bit of text. That's the title tag. If you're looking at the page, though, the text at the very top, that's not the title
tag.
Correct. That is not the title tag. That is the heading.
Heading. Okay. So the heading, before tags came into anything, was what we had called a title.
Probably,
like, what are you titling your blog? That is the heading.
Probably, but there were, as long as there were blogs, there were tags. So you'd be talking about like a newspaper article. What's the title? Or
if you were doing a book report.
Right.
What the first page would say.
Yeah. Your blog has a heading.
Right.
What is the heading? That's the big text at the top. Your title tag, anything with the word tag in it is in the code. It's literally just like a little tag.
Double checking.
Okay. So next.
On the undercarriage.
Sure. Number 4, the meta description. And here's where people always say, be sure to put your keywords in your meta description. It doesn't matter at all.
Okay.
It hasn't mattered since like 2017. Google said in a public statement very specifically, doesn't matter if you put your keywords in your description tag. It makes absolutely no difference. What is important is that every single page on your website, including this blog, needs to have a unique meta description tag. That means a description tag that is different from every other page.
Okay. And what do you put in the description tag?
You put in the description tag a description of the blog, a little 1 or 2 sentence description of what this blog is about.
Is it kind of an outline or a summary?
It is a 1 to 2 sentence description of what people are going to get. Where people will see this is in Google.
Yeah.
Before they click, not the big blue line of text, but the little paragraph line of text beneath that, little smaller. So it's like this there is a character limit on this. It's 160 characters.
Okay.
The description should explain to people what they're going to see if they click on this thing to read it. What I typically do, especially for a blog, is I take the first sentence of the blog.
Yeah.
And I make that the description tag, and I just whittle it down. If it's longer than 160 characters, I shorten it as much as I can.
So that, and now all of these things are visible to visitors?
Yes.
Okay. That's important to note.
Most of these things are going to be, everything we've covered so far, except for the heading, is going to be visible to users in Google before they get to the site. Okay. So it's letting them know, what is this blog about?
Right.
And giving them a little bit of information. And what I mentioned is just being the method of taking the first sentence, the first paragraph, and using that as the meta description. If you did not have a meta description, a meta description,
they would use that.
That's what Google would do. So that's one reason I do it. Another reason I do it is it's great for users. They're going to get the first. They're not going to be confused if they read the meta description and then they click on it and then they see something that seems different. They're going to be confused. You don't want to do that.
No confusion.
If they get So
confusion is the enemy of following up and continuing to read and be interested.
That's exactly correct.
I'm so concise today.
Okay, number 5, the excerpt. Now, this is not
the X-Files.
No. Sometimes, depending on the platform you have, it might have an excerpt. You don't always have the option for an excerpt. When you do, WordPress does this. When you do, my default is just make it the same as the meta description. There are some platforms that use the term excerpt instead of meta description.
Oh.
When you see excerpt, if you see it and you don't see meta description, or you see it and you do see the term meta description somewhere where you can fill it in, just make those two the same.
Okay. And you can do that.
Yes.
And okay, it's advisable.
It's advisable. I'm advising it right now.
Excellent.
Image tags. Next is image tags.
Yes.
This is where people always say, be sure to put your keywords. And I say, please don't do that. It's right on Google Guidelines. Please don't do that. Yeah. This is where you should, image alt text is where you describe what the image is. Now, if it's an image on a blog and you're talking about XYZ, that image is probably going to be related to XYZ and Google's going to recognize that.
Yes.
Google's algorithm is pretty smart. It's beyond just having to repeat the same word over and over. Again, I'll give a good example of this when we finish the list.
Okay.
Next is
Wait, do we want to go into any more detail what that is?
I'll give an example, and it will help.
Okay. Not now, though. Stay tuned.
Stay tuned.
Okay.
The text. There's a few things with the body text. There's the subheadings. So we had the heading of the page, right? Yes. That's the H1. If you saw a lot
of love for Meredith.
Yes. Within that blog, there are going to be subheadings.
Yes.
Very commonly, there are subheadings. Those are going to be H2s and H3s.
Yeah.
Again, people say in the checklist we talked about last week said, be sure to put your keyword in there. And I say, don't repeat your keyword in there. Yeah. This is where you talk about variations. And these are like subtopics of my love for Meredith.
Yes.
These are things where I would talk about, let's skip that part. Subheadings, variations of your keyword.
Okay.
And that would probably happen naturally. However you write the blog, it's probably going to not be difficult to do. The length. Next is the length. The checklist we talked about last week said it has to be longer than 1,000 characters. It doesn't need to be that long. If you're writing a blog with any sort of SEO in mind.
Is this number 6?
I have no idea what number this is.
Yeah, it's number 6.
This is number 9.
We're on 9?
Yeah. If you're writing a blog with any sort of SEO in mind, it's got to have at least 350 words.
Okay.
And most likely, I would say more than 500. What I said last week is keep in mind what your keyword is. If it's like something that's really not competitive and maybe your blog has a video in it, I bet that is competitive.
Yeah.
If you're targeting more competitive keywords, you will probably notice that the websites that get ranked for that keyword are going to be longer. You're probably going to need to make it longer.
Okay.
So there is no exact rule here for how long it needs to be, but I would say would
be beneficial.
Yeah, it would be beneficial if it were longer than 500 words.
Okay, good to know.
Could be beneficial if it's longer than 1,000 too, but that is not.
It's not mandatory.
What you want to avoid is
filling it in.
Is coming up with 1,000 words of junk because you just think that you need to have 1,000 words. That's not going to help.
Flashback to high school.
Right. Okay, number 10, file names.
File names.
File names of your images. A lot of people talk about this. It's like this secret. I don't know. This is a super, 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 super small factor in SEO. Because when do you come across file names? If you're reading a blog, do you look at the file names? Do you say, oh, that's a great image?
Only if it doesn't work do you see it. Or if someone forwards it to you.
If it doesn't work, you see the alt text. You almost hardly ever see the file name.
You see the file name if it's used, if a photo image thing is used in an email signature. And then it's forwarded, and the image doesn't come through, but the name of the...
Even that would probably default to the alt text, and if there is no alt text, then it might go to the file name.
Okay, that's why mine goes to the file name.
Yeah. Or if you tried to save that image.
This one. Yes, this one. It's the one. Use this one.
I don't know what you're talking about.
That's you when you just keep trying to find the one when you're making it and the words you use to...
Oh, that clarifies everything.
Yeah.
Or if you drag an image to your desktop, then you would be able to see the file name because that file's going to be on your computer. Right. But this is not really something for SEO. Now, I think we may have had an entire podcast about this, how you should name your files to help you organize your website. And if you are doing that, you're probably naming it along the lines of what the blog is about. That's naturally going to be related. And this is kind of the advice that Google gives in the Google guidelines. Name your files so that they are helpful to you.
Yes.
What I do first is usually the first. Nope. Oh. Don't need to put the date in. What I do is I put the name of the page is the first.
Oh, that's right. I know that.
So when I have a big list of files, it's easy for me to find everything. Yeah. And naturally, that's then going to be very, I wouldn't say very, but it's going to be related to the keyword. Okay. So good enough.
Good enough.
Okay. What number are we on? We're on number 11. Duplicate content. And just make sure you are not duplicating large amounts of content.
Right.
If you are duplicate content is really bad for SEO.
It's like being nominated for 2 Oscars.
Kind of.
I think I used that same similarity.
Yes, you did. You did, yes. It's very bad for SEO because SEOs over the years like so many of these things, have tried to duplicate content to spam the system and trick Google and et cetera, that we have tried to no end. Because it's difficult. The reason we do that is it's not easy to create a whole bunch of new content.
Yeah.
It's a whole lot easier to create a single piece of content and then spin it and create 10 pieces of content. Google doesn't like that. Users don't like that. No. That's not good. That's probably more information than you wanted.
No.
But the point is, don't duplicate content. It's not good. Now, on a blog, it's...
Because it waters it down.
Kind of. You're confusing Google. Yeah.
It fights against each other. They turn into clones who attack each other.
That's exactly correct, actually. Yeah.
I know. Not really.
It would be natural on a blog to have maybe an author bio repeated. That's fine. That's at the bottom. Any web page is going to have some duplication. You're going to have your navigation duplicated. You're going to have your footer duplicated. Maybe your side nav duplicated. Just don't duplicate big amounts of text more than like a paragraph. Or 2, or maybe if you have a big author bio, might be 2 short paragraphs. Just be aware of this. Don't take a chunk from another blog because you think it applies and stick it in here.
Right. We all want to make it easier, but this is not the time.
Number 12, links.
12.
So this was part of the checklist that we reviewed last week.
Yes.
And it said make sure you include an internal link, an external link. The rule of thumb for links, if they're helpful to users, include them. I would say very much you're probably going to have an internal link. That's a link from your blog to some other pages on your website.
Okay.
That's normal. I would encourage that.
Yeah. You're keeping it within the family.
Yeah. If people come through a blog, people come into your blog from Google.
Right.
There's
direct
something
them to
in
the site. Keep them in your home.
Yeah, but even more specifically, something in that blog is going to be about something related to your business, and something in that blog is going to be hopefully fairly closely related to some aspect of your business and some page of your website. So link to that page.
Right.
And I would say it's better to do that early on, like in the first 1 or 2 paragraphs.
Yes.
If you want to include more links, you can to other pages, but just don't go nuts with it. Don't have like a dozen links. If you want to have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5, that's probably okay. If you have the more links, you probably are going to want to have a longer blog post. Don't have a 500-word blog post with
links.
8 links. If you have a 5,000-word blog post, then 8 links would be appropriate.
Of course it would.
So again, this is for users. If you look at your blog as a user, does it look like it's something that was created for SEO? If it does, then it's not good. This applies to the links.
Retreat.
And also one more important note with the links. If you're linking to an external website, make sure it's a quality website. Don't link to shitty external websites.
Yes.
I'll give an example that I'm going to be using here for this
momentarily.
But next, 13,
yes.
date. So the date's important. kind of goes without reason that you should give an accurate date when you publish your blog. The reason I included it here is when you go back, if you revise your blogs, which is something I encourage you to do, and we've talked about before, if you revise a significant portion of a blog, like I would say 20% or more, if you rewrite it or you add stuff or you make it longer, then you can update the date.
Update the date.
Update the publish date.
Now, what if you haven't been blogging in a really long time, but you want it to seem like you do? Can you change all your old blogs to more current dates to appear that you've been blogging like crazy recently? Asking for a friend?
What do you think?
Yes.
If you you said, can you do this to make it appear like if you're doing anything to make it appear like you're doing something that you're not doing, the answer is no. That's not a good idea. Now, if you want to take an old blog post and it talks about
puppies,
something that happened in 2014, and you're updating it and talk about things that happened today, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Update it. But don't go back and just update your old blog post with new dates. Do not do that. Absolutely do not do that. You need to update the content.
Who do that? You'd have to be crazy to do that. Or genius. I mean.
And one caveat on that, on updating your publish date, don't do it more than once or twice a year. You don't want to have a blog that you constantly redo it. I would say give it at least 6 months, probably more like 12 months. That's something you don't want to do very often.
Okay.
And then the final point, and this is kind of the most important one.
Okay, save the best for last.
And I've never seen it on a blog checklist. You got to define your main keyword. And so,
question mark?
Yeah, so you're writing a blog. You probably have a keyword in mind that you want to target, right?
Yeah.
Do a little bit of keyword research, just a little bit. And in the 34 pages of this thing, I give 3 different fairly simple methods to do just a little bit of keyword research.
Okay.
To make sure that because you might have a keyword in mind, and maybe the way you phrase it, like nobody else is using that.
Delicious trumpets.
But maybe if you were to phrase it a little bit differently, maybe it's very popular. So that's kind of what we're looking for. You want to get the most popular variation of whatever keyword.
Okay, how do we get this list is my question.
I'm going to link to it below.
Oh, okay. Link to it. Very nice. So that brings it all back home.
Yeah. Okay, so that's 14 points. I think they're all pretty good. But you might be wondering, well, what does this mean? What does that mean? And that's why I put this little example. If I were turning this podcast if I were turning this blog checklist into a blog, which I will do.
Yeah.
These are how and I'm going to hold it up for you.
Thank you. That's great. I see completely unfocused.
It's a pretty simple table. Rail. At the top, I have, what is my main keyword? And for me, I did a little bit of research and I figured out that the way that most people are searching for this is SEO checklists for blog posts.
Oh.
That's my main keyword. Right. See, now I would have done something different. I wouldn't have thought of that exactly, but I did literally like 3 minutes of keyword research, probably not even that much. That's how people are searching. So
so keyword can be a phrase?
Yeah. Keywords are typically phrases. It's whatever somebody puts into the search box in Google is the keyword. It can be one term. It can be 8 terms.
I thought keywords were single words.
No, keywords are the query.
Oh.
Okay, so that's my main keyword. So now beneath that, I have a little table. What is my title tag?
It's on the table.
My title tag, remember, is going to start with my keyword. It's my keyword exactly. It's SEO checklist for blog posts, and then a pipe symbol, and then meredithshusband.com. That's about as much. Yeah, the vertical. Oh man, we've talked about this before. The vertical symbol. It's on your keyboard.
Vertical line.
Right above the. Most often, I think it's right above the
what is it called?
Return key. It's a pipe.
Pipe?
Pipe. Okay. Yes. Pipe symbol.
Not a pipe in my mind. But...
It's TMI. Then the heading. So the heading for this blog would be, there's no absolute right or wrong way to title some of these things. I could call it, I probably will call it, the ultimate blog SEO checklist.
Yeah, that sounds
notice that has some variation of my has some variation of my keyword, but it's not just repeated.
Right.
So that's my H1. Then I have some H2s. In this case, my H2s are going to be things like blog checklist, That's one of them. Another H2 will be blog SEO best practices. That's kind of for the 34 pages that I mentioned that are coming up.
Right.
And then also within there, more SEO tips for blogs. Those are my H2s. Notice I didn't repeat my keyword over and over.
No.
And then I have some H3s.
Ooh.
So imagine a bullet list.
Yeah.
The H1 is the main bullet. The H2s are bullets indented.
Yeah.
The H3s are bullets indented underneath the H2s.
Okay.
The H3s are going to be things like title tags, headings, meta description, image alt tags, things like that, things that we've talked about.
Right.
And my slug is going to be blog SEO checklist with hyphens in between the words. Very simple.
Not to lower things.
Yeah, don't use the underscores in your slugs and your URLs.
Yeah.
Use hyphens.
I still can't believe keywords are not just single words, and I've been participating in this podcast.
Yeah, we've talked about that a few times.
We have?
Yep.
Good to know.
So my slug, very short, no stop words, a, and, of, the. It's very short. It gets the message across.
Yeah.
Again, it has my terms
Can
in it from my main keyword.
Can you repeat it again? Because I think I talked over it.
Yep. Blog SEO checklist.
Okay.
And it could be that, again, there's no absolute right or wrong way to do that. You could say SEO blog checklist. I guess it just made more sense to me to do it this way.
Okay.
The meta description. So the meta description for this podcast and this eventual blog will be something like a quick and simple checklist to help ensure your blogs follow SEO best practices.
Oh, very nice. See, you're so good at this.
Now,
you should have a podcast.
I know. So see, that explains what it's about. It's hopefully enticing, make people want to click on it. I don't repeat my keywords. I don't even have, I kind of do have some terms from my keyword in there, but that's my meta description. The image alt tags would be, I'll have, like, for example, I will have an image that displays a title tag, what it looks like when it's in Google.
Yes.
The alt text for that image will be title tag displayed in Google search results or something similar. I might shorten that a little bit, but that's the idea. Notice again, the alt text is not SEO checklist for blogs. I do not repeat my keyword.
Yes.
Last week we talked, I think it was last week, we talked about if I had say you were to open a blog and all you saw was the images.
Yeah.
Or if those images were not loading, if you're a vision impaired person, just the alt text.
Yes.
If you open that up and that's all you saw, and the alt text were something like groomsmen giving toast, rehearsal dinner, ring bearers, couple's first dance. If those were the image alt tags, what do you think that?
You used this before. Wedding.
Yes. Yeah. It's a wedding. So my point, use the image alt text. And in fact, use all of these. Yeah. But this is a good example for the image alt. Use them to tell a story about what your blog is about. If you list out your image alt tags and your heading and your title and everything, it should not just be a list of your keyword repeated over and over, which is what most people recommend. It's what that checklist we did last week. Yeah. If you,
those are people who probably changed the dates on their blogs.
I know. Think again back to our little thought experiment. If you open a blog and all you see is the images or the image alt text, if that alt text were all just wedding photographer, 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 that's shit.
That's pretty crap.
Is. Yes. And that's what people do. And that's what that checklist we talked about last week, that's what it kind of recommended.
Okay.
And then links. For the final thing on my example, if I'm making this into a blog post, where would I link? I would link to, I have a blog post on how to write title tags. Yes. I'm going to link to that.
Hey.
I have a blog on how to do keyword research. I'm going to link to that.
Yeah.
I'm also going to link to Google's guidelines on what not to do.
Nice. That's very helpful.
So I'm linking to something externally because it's should be very useful to visitors to see, like, I'm not talking out of my ass. This is what Google says. It's also a high quality website. Google.
Yes. You hope.
Yeah. I think linking to any Google properties, Google's not going to have a problem with it.
No.
Okay. So that's it.
Wow.
We're done.
Short and sweet.
It is. I dove down into each of these, but
yeah. No. I think it is a veritable odyssey of culmination of what you talk about.
Thank you for that.
You're welcome.
the checklist it's one sheet. It looks like a checklist. If you print that out,
it will be numbered.
It will be numbered.
Do you want to write that down?
If you do these things, then they're not that difficult. Your blog is going to be on a path for good SEO.
Right. Okay, I need to go do stuff.
Well said.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. We really hope that you find this helpful and useful. And if you do, what you could do for us as a thanks would be to, drumroll please, yes, leave a review. Yes, everybody says it, I know, but it really does make a difference. Take 3 seconds, leave as many stars, say something really nice about what you like about the podcast and maybe why other people would like it. It would mean the world to us, especially my husband. That better? All right, I'm going to try one where I'm not going to be charming.